Hello all and welcome here in to round 5 in the Tier 2 WHF Championship. You're joined by me, WHF Arrow, for solo comps tonight, and we're here in Belgium. One more race before we go on our mid-season break here in Spa. Welcome in Zampa, welcome in Ravage into the chat. And don't really know, yeah, right, we've finally gotten everyone loaded into the lobby. That was a bit of an odd graphic, but we will see who'll be quickest. Last time out, the race winner I believe was GB? No, it was Josh. How could I forget? Josh won in Hungary after GB let him through into the victory, which was one of the most sportsmanlike things you will ever see. Josh had unfortunate multiple disconnects, and in the end GB let him through in the final lap for the win, which was not something I seen coming, to be fair. Not something I seen on the cards. Meanwhile, King Kai, the debutant tonight in the Haas. We will go on board with King Kai to see what he can do. Meanwhile, there's also Ranga, his first race in Tier 2, had a race in Tier 1 earlier this season. Meanwhile, it'll be King Kai's first race, and interested to see how quick King Kai can be. FDC in the chat says good luck, one love. I think that means Jamaica. And I'm pretty sure FDC is just Friggy, down in P11 at the moment, chilling in the pit lane in the Alfa Romeo. But we will go on board with the first driver come through, and I wonder, is that Cthulhu? Yeah, it is Cthulhu. Cthulhu is normally the first egg to the box, and he had to overtake King Kai because he wants that spotlight. Cthulhu will be our first driver to start a lap here. The lanky one in the chat says good luck, Salmon and Dynamic. Meanwhile, Cthulhu will be our first driver to put some rubber down on the track. Let's see what lap times these drivers can come up with, as Cthulhu now heads down the Camel Straight. And Cthulhu now losing the rear a little bit through. Let me remember the names. Let me remember the names as you can hear me type into Google. Is it Lacombe? I think it's Lacombe. Into Puon. Yeah, I remember. I actually haven't started typing yet, so I actually did remember Lacombe. But I do not remember any other ones after Puon. Meanwhile, Cthulhu still going ahead on this lap. King Kai in the Haas following around. Interested to see where King Kai can put that Haas. Let's see here as he comes through Blanchimont into the bus stop chicane. Where will Cthulhu put that Williams? I mean, it will be first, but what lap time do we see? A 43.4. King Kai across the line next. Excuse me, King Kai, the 45.2. Next will be the Red Bull of Zampa. Zampa here, can he get pole? I've heard Zampa has been practicing a little bit. 42.7 for this race, as it's one of his personal favourites, but Callum now goes quickest with a 42.5. Next we have the Mercedes of Dub Z, or is that Spared Fungus, starting a lap. We have the AlphaTauri of the Salmon coming around now up to P3. 5,000 shy of Zampa's time. Next is Josh, who goes quickest with a 42.3. Good lap there from Josh. Charisma now up to P6. Next across the line will be Friggy, starting a lap, I believe. But do we have anyone on a lap? Coda's coming through on a lap. Is anyone ahead of Coda on a lap? I don't believe so. Maybe Ranga in the Aston Martin. Ranga now round the final corner. Gonna plant the power. Where can Ranga put that Aston Martin? It's an Aston Martin 1-2, and look how close that is. 9 thousandths. Ranga very quick here, and the Aston Martin's looking very quick here tonight. GB says 0 practice at Belgium will be interesting. Pneumatic, I believe, starting their lap. Friggy coming round. There's Spared Fungus yet to settle up, but it will be Friggy first here. No, Friggy's invalid, so it will be Spared Fungus on a lap now through Stabilo. And where can Spared Fungus put this Mercedes? Only a couple drivers yet to put in their laps now. Spared Fungus using a bit much of the curb there at Blanchimont. Meanwhile, as he goes into bus stop, a little touch of the grass on entry, which is really not going to help him under braking. And this may be a rather slow lap for Spared Fungus of 43.9. We know he can do better than that. Just struggling under braking. Dynamic Duo may be the next driver around on the lap. GB now sees the car get out of the way. Is Pneumatic coming around? Pneumatic invalid, so it will be Dynamic Duo here in the AlphaTauri. Will be the next driver around on a lap. And where can the AlphaTauris go? At this stage, AlphaTauri still lead the constructors, I believe. Let me actually get the standings up 1 second. Because I do know GB Sanderson in the Ferrari is leading the championship, but the constructors is a different story. The constructors, I believe, is led by the AlphaTauris. Dynamic Duo goes quickest with a 42.2. Brilliant lap there. And could Dynamic Duo convert this into pole and potentially get his first win? Dynamic Duo is third in the championship as it stands. So, could be a big result on the way for AlphaTauri. And in the constructors, yes, the AlphaTauris do lead by the AlphaTauris do lead the championship by 9 points over the Ferraris. But who's on a lap here? It should be well, GB's finished his lap. He's gone up to P6, and despite saying he hasn't practiced, he's only 4/10 off pole as it stands, so he's not too far down. Dasher now was invalid. I wonder is Dasher going to start another lap? He is. Dasher, his first appearance this season. What can he do in the Alpine? Let's see as we follow him round. And Dasher had made multiple appearances last season in the Alpine, but this season it is his first appearance here in round 5. And hopefully Dasher can convert. Let's see But we do have a very close field at the moment. The top 8 separated by half a second. So there is time to find there. Will they find it? There is a couple drivers out there who I believe can go a lot quicker than they have already. I know Charisma, Cthulhu, Spared Fungus all could go quicker. Coda as well in the laps they've set. Dubsy, who knows if he'll ever qualify, or is he just going to retire in the pits? Man loves his last to first challenge. Meanwhile, Dasher now going to cross the line. Where's he going to go? Up to P11. The Alpine goes next across the line. Well, next to start a lap. Let's see. It could be one of the Haas's. Nudemax on an out lap. We do see Zampa on a lap here. Purple middle sector. 3/10 up out of the middle sector here. And can Zampa convert? It sounded like he lifted a little bit there. It was a bit strange what happened to the engine. But can Zampa convert on this very quick lap time as it stands? Zampa coming across the line. It's P2. Less than 300ths behind first. Mega lap there from the Red Bull of Zampa. And look how close this field is. I am rubbing my hands together just seeing how close this field is. This is exciting. Let's see who is next on the lap. It should be Charisma around, although Charisma's invalid. There is an Aston Martin of Josh, although he's invalid as well. We could have Friggy on his first lap. It will be Friggy setting his first lap time now in that Alfa Romeo. Friggy into bus stop now. Round the final corner. Where can he put that Alfa Romeo? Goes P14. And next across the line we may have Dasher's in behind his Alpine teammate. Is he? Or is it Cthulhu? Oh, it is Dobo, yeah. Dobo here now. 2/10 up. Where will Dobo go with this lap? Up the way, all the way up to P3. And it's getting closer and closer. The top 5 separated by just over a 10th. And in Spa, that is tough to get, because there's a lot of corners here, a lot of places to gain and lose time. Meanwhile, Spared Fungus, as I'd mentioned, can go a lot quicker. He's now a second up on his time out of the middle sector. But where can Spared Fungus put this Mercedes as he rounds the final corner? Cuts maybe a bit too much of the final corner, but keeps it valid. Spared Fungus now all the way up to P8. Does improve by over a second. But you can see here, chat, look how close this is. This is very exciting. Let's see. 5 minutes remaining in this session, and still all to play for. I am very interested. Please get your predictions in the chat. Who you think will get pole? I honestly don't know. I normally it's pretty obvious who's getting pole, but now I'm like, I actually couldn't bet. I don't really know who's gonna get pole here. I'm gonna bet on Josh. Josh last season was in the Ferrari. I am gonna bet on Josh getting pole here. Got pole last time out in Hungary. But really, it could be anyone. GB has done a 42.6 despite not done any practice. So he's only 4/10 off, and I feel like he could gain 4/10 here. So will we see anyone in the 41s? But very interesting to see. Is anyone else on a lap here? I don't think Spared Fungus is, but Kai is, and Kai already half a second up. Although he's a second down, I don't know what's happened there with the Delta. Kai coming around on his lap. Meanwhile, Cthulhu is in the way. Does dive out of the way just in time. And Kai now coming around on his lap in the Haas here. And Kai in the Haas. Pneumatic yet to set a lap here. Dubsy's out on a lap as well. Yet to set a lap. Dubsy just either does one lap in qualifying or no laps in qualifying. He just doesn't really like qualifying. I don't know what it is. I don't know what qualifying ever did to him. Meanwhile, Kai now coming up to bus stop. Can he improve in the Haas? Currently sits P15 out of 17 drivers here on the grid. And Kai now, don't believe he's improving, comes in as he clunks the wall. Meanwhile, we will have Dasher and Josh on a lap here. Josh coming around, did see the McLaren dive out of his way. Meanwhile, who else could be on a lap here? Is there anyone ahead of him? There's Dubsy leading the Red Bulls here. Dubsy gonna set his first lap time here. Meanwhile, we have Ranka starting his lap, but I feel like this is going to be the final run for everyone. 2 minutes remaining, not a lot of time left in the session. Dubsy now in the Mercedes. Where can he put that Mercedes? We will see. Dubsy now coming up to bus stop. And through the chicane he goes. And Dubsy, yep, just doesn't like doing qualifying, but we'll head back up now to Josh, who is 3/10 up here through the final corner. And he's invalid. He's invalid. He may have enough fuel, though, to push on an extra lap here. But he's going to have the Red Bull of Zampa, I believe, who was starting a lap there. And Josh now is going to turn in here. Oh, and there's a 3-wide moment in qualifying. You don't want to be seeing that. Josh had to let through the car exiting the pits there. Dobo now starting an out lap. We do have the Haas of Pneumatic coming up to finish his lap. We do have the AlphaTauris coming around to start their laps. As Pneumatic runs wide, but still keeps it valid. And Pneumatic now up to P14. Next across the line will be a couple people on out lap here. Is there anyone actually coming up to finish a lap here? Coda coming through behind GB Sanderson. Will Coda improve here? Coda in the Williams, who got his first podium last time out in Hungary. A lovely drive from Coda. And can he get a good result here in Belgium? Jumps to P12, gets ahead of Dasher. Meanwhile, we do have Zampa who's going to be around next. Although there is an Aston Martin, is that of Ranga. Ranga now around, but Ranga not improving. I wonder is Ranga going for an extra outlap? Meanwhile, Zampa's invalid. Oh, what is happening here? Zampa and Charisma almost came together there. I don't know why, but Charisma now into bus stop, trying to improve massively here. The checkered flag has fallen. I think Zampa's not going to get another lap in. Charisma now jumps up to P10. Meanwhile, who's across the line next? We've got a McLaren of Callum, half a second up. Can Callum go on pole here? Callum with a 41.9 goes pole. I completely forgot about Callum, to be honest. He was further down than the top 6. And now Callum all the way up to pole. Mega improvement now. Dobo around next, following Dasher across the line. Dasher doesn't improve. Dobo up to P2. Lovely lap there. Meanwhile, we've Josh, who doesn't seem to be improving. We do have Dynamic Duo rounding the final corner, who's 2/10 up here. Can he go pole in the AlphaTauri? He does with a 41.8. Mega lap there from Dynamic Duo. The Salmon goes up to P5. Ranga coming around next, 2/10 up on his lap. This could be a mega qualifying here. GB Sanderson coming around next. I wonder is Coda improving ahead of him? Coda crosses the line, doesn't improve. GB all the way up to P2. He's 100th off. He's 100th off. Ranga 2 tenths up. Where can he put his Aston? Rank up to P4. What a absolutely amazing qualifying there. Dynamic Duo on pole by 100th. GB Sanderson 100th off without practice. I mean, gotta be happy with that. You'd have to say. Callum with a 41.9 behind, followed by Ranga, followed by Dobo, Zampa, the Salmon, Josh, Spared Fungus, and Charisma is your top 10. But what a lap there from Dynamic Duo, who is on pole here in the AlphaTauri. What a lap. Wow. Look how close the field is, and especially in Spa. Less than half a second separates the top 8. Wow. Absolutely amazing qualifying there to watch. Normally qualifying's not this interesting, but look how close that was. Half a tenth between the top 3, and this is going to be a very exciting race. I'm sure of it. As we load in now, hopefully no one readies up. I've told them to not ready up, but we will see. Hopefully they don't. We can only hope and pray. But we will be having a 50% race around Spa here in Belgium. It will be 22 laps. So I could let everyone know the strategy that I would go for. I don't know if it's a bit of a giveaway, but it is pretty straightforward in my eyes. Actually, you know what, it is Spa. The tire deck isn't horrific. I feel like you can do multiple strategies here. With Hungary, it was very straightforward. Hungary was a medium hard / hard medium, and last time out the majority of the grid went on softs, which was the wrong decision, and Josh showed the pace and won in Hungary, although with his disconnections he could have lost it. But again, GB Sanderson, one of the greatest sportsmen you'll ever meet, our championship leader here, led him through because he knew those disconnections cost Josh the win, and what a man GB is. Also, WHF commentator for Tier 1, as well as WHF editor, and I don't know, what else? How else can we big up GB? We're just supporting GB here. But anyway, GB P2, followed by I can't even remember it's Callum behind GB, but it will be Dynamic Duo on pole for his first pole in WHF. So mega lap there from Dynamic Duo. Very excited to see where the drivers can finish. Coda says good luck everyone. Pneumatic says safety car lap 1 free, and it is Spa, so could happen. I'm not writing it out, but could happen. And but let me get your predictions in the chat. Who do you think is going to win this race? I honestly don't know, because the top 8 are so close together that anything could happen. Yeah, Nudimac says with the first corner being a hairpin, he says GB for the win. Yep, hopefully Dynamic Duo, we can convert that into a win, but we will see. the top 8 here very close in qualifying, so I feel like anyone in the top 8 could win this. I feel like it'll be the most consistent driver will win, so whichever driver picks the right strategy and is the most consistent, doesn't make mistakes, will win. But the drivers now should be readying up, and we'll get ready for the 5 red lights. 22 laps around the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, and GB Sanderson leads the championship by 20 points. And will he extend his lead this race, or will someone close the gap to the Ferrari driver? We will see. But as you can hear the tone, we're gonna go over to the grid now and have the 5 red lights on, and they're out. Although the drivers are only revving up their engines now. Who will get away well here? Dynamic Duo on the inside of GB into turn 1. Dynamic Duo's got a good start here into turn 1. GB has to leave some space for Callum on the inside as there's an Alpine ghosted. There's an Alpine really ghosted. And I think that might be Dobo struggling with connection. Meanwhile, Zampa out, and there's a VSC immediately. That's Cthulhu. Cthulhu all the way back now. I don't see any damage, but I do believe that that's Charisma. Unfortunate for Charisma. That is big damage for the Red Bull. And I just feel for him. I feel like, Dasher missing a front left end plate. Is there anyone else got damage here under this VSC? Everyone listening, make sure you stay under the Delta. Don't be getting any silly drive-throughs. It just makes your life more miserable. But I feel for Charisma. Already lap 1, missing front wing. Just, I don't know, but I feel like Dasher may have been involved here. Dasher also missing a front wing. We see King Kai also missing his front wing as well. So there could have been a 3-wide moment that caused that accident, unfortunately. But you'll see here, I'm not seeing any more damage throughout the grid. I do feel like the majority of the other drivers got free, but unfortunate for Charisma. But Dynamic Duo does lead us away. But whenever we go green flags, everyone make sure you stay under the Delta. We do not want any drive-throughs here. And I do believe we've gone green flag racing and no one has got a drive-through, so that's great to see. GB now on the rear of Dynamic Duo. Friggy and Dasher have retired into Blanchimont. Both of them out. Friggy and Dasher out here on lap 1. And there's a safety car and everyone piling into the pits already for a lap 2 safety car. And I do believe that is for the Friggy and Dasher incident. Whatever happened there, but both of them out at Blanchimont. And chaotic start here already. But Dynamic Duo has maintained his lead. We'll have a look at the tyres everyone's gone on to. And I think if you're at the back now, I feel like switching to the hards, potentially to go to the end like Kai is, could be a good strategy. But it is very early, so we could see a lot of drivers go medium soft from here. Like Charisma and Pneumatic. King Kai could go hard soft or even just hard to the end, although it would be a bit of a stretch. Meanwhile, we've had a chaotic start here. And I really feel for Charisma, I must be honest. Charisma has not had the best times this season, and yet again has found himself in a lap 1 incident. But Charisma, if you're listening, you still can come back here, show the pace that you have. But anyway, anything interesting? Ranga's gone for the softs. The Salmon, Spread Fungus and Dubsy have gone for the softs. Everyone else started on the mediums, and King Kai on the hards to the end here, potentially probably going to do a hard soft, I would say. Meanwhile, Charisma and Pneumatic going to do a medium soft. King Kai could do a hard medium as well from here, but we will see what he goes for. Let's see Did anyone gain any positions there off the start? Zampa lost the position, Josh up 2, Code up 3, Dub Z up 6. Dub Z just loves the race, doesn't want to do qualifying ever, just knows how to navigate the traffic, does Dub Z. But Ranga gonna come in now along with the Salmon, and I think they're probably gonna be going on hards to go a bit longer here. Now let's see what Ranga goes for the mediums. And they have switched off their mandatory compounds, so they could go even medium here if they have them available. Meanwhile, the Salmon has gone onto fresh hards. The hards could go to the end, chat, I will be honest. It is doable, but may not be preferable. But the Salmon now out on the hards, Ranga out on the mediums. Could be looking to do a medium soft from here. But he has lost a lot of track position, so I don't know if this has been the best decision for Ranga. But do those fresh mediums, or are those fresh mediums going to help? We will see. Meanwhile, Charisma has joined the back of the pack, and Nudomatic is catching up now, and the safety car should be in next lap, I believe, as we will have some proper racing as we head on to lap 4. But a chaotic start there. Phrygian Dasher out on lap 1. As they exit Sector 2, is the safety car going to say in this lap? He is, thank the Lord. We don't have another lap of just nonsense. Meanwhile, we're going to move back up to the front here. Dynamic Duo is going to get us restarted. He has the championship leader, the Ferrari, in behind. Meanwhile, Kai has picked up a time penalty. Trying to head after the AlphaTauri. And up the Camel Straight they go. As I think the stream is dying. Let me fix this. GB is going to get the move now into turn, whatever it is. Where is the thing? Alright, apologies for that. The stream just massively started lagging, but it should be fixed now. Ryan up into P10. GB unable to get the move done on Dynamic Duo. Dynamic Duo keeps the lead there. And Callum now following GB in behind. We've got a train all the way down from 1 to 5 already forming, but Zampa now going to have to push to get inside the DRS here if he drops too far back. Meanwhile, Coda also looking to be in this battle as well, but also dropping back a little bit. Meanwhile, King Kai staying out on this damaged wing, and Nudomatic now. Don't believe he has a damaged wing. Meanwhile, Zampa has had an issue because Code has gotten through in an unlikely place. So I think Zampa had an issue at Stavolo, which allowed the Williams through. Meanwhile, Spared Fungus now round the outside of Zampa. Big crash between Zampa and Spared Fungus. And Zampa now Oh, and there's a massive crash. Cthulhu in the background. There's another safety car. I can't even see what's happening. I've just heard the crash. I don't even know what happened. Meanwhile, Ranga's sent it too deep. Randomly under the safety car. I'm so confused. What happened, Cthulhu? I don't even know. But another safety car early on here, which could benefit Ranga's. Ranga's on the fresher tyres. But absolutely chaotic. Anyway, Pneumatic says, I meant laps 1 to 3, not 3 safety cars. And we've already had 2 safety cars here so early on. Absolute chaos in the bus stop there. I couldn't even really tell what was happening. There was contact between Zampa and Spared Fungus, which I'm sure this will see the steward's desk at the end. Meanwhile, Josh is going to stay out here on the mediums. We will see, is that the move? Meanwhile, Ranga's probably going to stay out here as well. Ranga already boxed. Yep, Ranga going to stay out. Zampa's going to stay out here as well. And so is Charisma and the Salmon. So their earlier pit stops have actually helped them for track position here. Meanwhile, GB going to go onto the mediums. And everyone else seems to have switched onto the hards. And the hards will go to the end here. So I feel like GB is going to have to make these mediums stretch, which is possible around Spa. He can make it to the end here. He just needs to make sure that this safety car stays out as long as possible. But I have seen some drivers pit lap 7 here from the softs onto the mediums to the end, so it is doable. But he will have to do 16 laps on these medium tyres, which is doable, but is it the quickest? We will see. All the drivers on the hard runners on the hards here could be in good position here. Meanwhile, Josh now has found himself into the lead, but yet to box. Meanwhile, King Kai and Spared Fungus swapping. Unsure what's happening there, but I wonder, is the safety car going to be in this lap? Hopefully it is, so we don't have an unnecessary extra lap of safety car, because the whole field is bunched up now, and we will have the safety car in this lap. Josh is going to lead us away here, followed by Zampa, followed by Ranga, our first driver to box under that first safety car. Meanwhile, Salmon as well in on the hards, could go to the end here. We've got Charisma in P5, Pneumatic P6, Dynamic Duo, the first driver who got pole here, led the race. On the hards to the end here, will Dynamic Duo go? But as we're going to get the car or the safety car restart here, Zampa now heading in behind Josh, and can Josh replicate what he had in Hungary? Will he Yet another win here, although Josh and Zampa are going to need to pit here as we head on to lap 7. Meanwhile, GB immediately ahead of Dynamic Duo, but now Dynamic Duo with the switchback, they're going to head into a Rouge side by side. The Ferrari and AlphaTauri go. The AlphaTauri has to concede the position, and the AlphaTauri now on the rear of the Ferrari. Meanwhile, Ranga on the rear of Zampa as he can look for the move. Ranga too far back from Zampa. Meanwhile, Dynamic Duo too far back from the Ferrari of GB Sanderson, as GB now already heading, hunting after the Haas of Pneumatic, as Charisma picks up a time penalty. Not great outing so far for the Red Bulls. Only drivers yet to pick up time penalties along with Spared Fungus. Meanwhile, Pneumatic struggling here, which may open the door to GB Sanderson, who's going to get through now into P6 on the inside of Pouon. And Pneumatic now looking for the switchback, but can't find a way through. His Dynamic Duo now trying to get through on Pneumatic as, there's contact between Pneumatic and Dynamic Duo there. Meanwhile, Ranga through Stavolo, following the Red Bull of Zampa along, as Zampa trying to head after Josh. And Zampa now has Ranga on the outside. Very risky place to go side by side. Through Blanchimont now into bus stop. They're gonna go. Ranga on the inside, Zampa on the outside. Zampa tries to brake later. Zampa goes very deep. A little bit of contact with the Salmon. The Salmon trying to find a way through. Big contact here. Charisma trying to look for a way through as well. Charisma on the inside of the Salmon. And into turn 1 they go. The Salmon has to concede the position here. Meanwhile, GB on the inside of the Salmon as well. Absolute carnage under this restart, as Charisma struggling up a Rouge. And Charisma now going to overtake his Red Bull teammate now into P3. Meanwhile, we can see the Salmon in the background following Zampa. Bit of contact with the rear of Zampa, as GB also following this battle along. The Salmon now can see Zampa's going wide. Is he going to look to send it? He backs out, doesn't want to go for that move. GB goes very deep. Very deep does GB go. Callum also in this battle. There's so many battles happening here, as there's a yellow flag out now for Spared Fungus, I believe. And Coda's gone off down the hill. Meanwhile, Callum on the rear of GB Sanderson, as we've had absolute carnage under this restart. And if there is another safety car, it'll surely benefit Josh. He'll be able to switch onto the tyres that he wants. Meanwhile, GB does lead the train of the drivers who could go to the end on the tyres that they're currently on. Although the Salmon, I suppose, could as well, but it'll be a big stretch. Meanwhile, the Salmon now on the rear of Zampa. GB so close behind this battle as well. Head through Blanchimont into the bus stop chicane. Where are they going to go? GB runs into the rear of the AlphaTauri. Looking for the switchback is GB. The DRS is now enabled. Ranga is inside the DRS of his Aston Martin teammate Josh. Meanwhile, absolute carnage here. GB looking for a way through on the Salmon. Yellow flag out. That Spared Fungus has retired because he's hit the pit entry. He's crashed on pit entry, has Spared Fungus, and that's a VSC out. And this may help the Aston Martins here. If the Aston Martins can swap onto their next tyres under this VSC, it could help them. JG in the chat has said SSR 1-2. And currently it is Josh and Ranga leading, followed by Zampa and Charisma in P3 and 4 respectively, but they do have those time penalties that will play a factor in this race. Meanwhile, we do have thank you in the chat there, Sam, for the follow. Welcome in onto this VSC now. We just need to make sure no one gets a drive through, and Ranga's picked up a drive through. Ranga and King Kai have picked up drive throughs, and that is heartbreaking. That is absolutely heartbreaking. Meanwhile, GB on the rear now of the Salmon as well here under this VSC, but Ranga is going to be heartbroken after that drive through. Callum now also looking for the move here, but you can see the cars ahead are dancing all over. And GB now going to send it on the inside of the Salmon. The Salmon leaves the space. You can see Charisma going deep ahead. Round the outside, GB goes. An absolute carnage here. GB gets into P5. Lovely move. Meanwhile, the Salmon looking for a way back through again. You can see Charisma struggling up ahead. GB now on the inside of Zampa. Zampa going to keep it ahead of the Ferrari. Upper Rouge they go through Radion. Who will get the good run? Callum gets a lovely run. Meanwhile, GB round the outside of Charisma. And GB may even look on the inside of Zampa. He sends it in. Big send from GB, but it goes deep. It goes deep. And rejoins, but did he go off track? Zampa now side by side with Callum. Zampa on the inside, Callum on the outside in the McLaren. Side by side they go. What battling here is. There's another yellow flag out for Haas. Meanwhile, Zampa loses out here and losing the rear massively. Goes very defensive as Dynamic Duo around the outside of Perron. Oh my word, what racing. The Salmon trying to find a way through. Dynamic Duo got through on both of them. What a move. Look how close this racing is. This is one of the best Tier 2 races I've ever commentated on. Oh my word. The racing has been unbelievable here. I'm going to lose my voice by the end of this. Charisma following along. The AlphaTauris and Red Bull so close here. GB now into P3, which may be a net P1 as the Salmon has the time penalty. Ranga going to come in to serve that drive through finally. Josh has P1 here, but may need to box again. Meanwhile, GB could go to the end on the mediums, but will Callum be able to use those hards to the end to stay with GB? Dynamic Duo here as well, our pole sitter. Meanwhile, Charisma's had some sort of issue because he's dropped behind Dobo now as well. Ranga exits P9, he's not too far behind the pack. But absolute lightning racing here. The Salmon now on the rear of Zampa. Zampa in the Red Bull looking to defend from the Salmon. Will the Salmon get through on Zampa as they head now? Exiting the Kemmel straight through Lacombe they go. The AlphaTauri of the Salmon gets through. Zampa now looking for a back through. Will Dobo look for a way through as well here? But the Salmon now 1.4 behind his teammate. There may be a new DRS train forming. I feel like Callum may be in a great position here. If Callum can just keep clear of penalties here, his hards at the end will be a lot stronger than GB's mediums. And Callum already looking very strong behind GB already, who seems to be struggling. GB did outqualify Callum, but Callum may have more practice in the bag. GB did mention how he did not have a lot of practice for this race, and he's already struggling through Stavilo. And will Callum get a good exit here to try and get GB? Going to be using the toe of the Ferrari. Will he go for a move in the bus stop? We'll see. As Callum now lifting off the throttle, wants the move with DRS, doesn't want to go for a risky send. Meanwhile, Dobo on the rear of Zampa. Zampa locking up a little bit, going straight on. Will Dobo get the run on Zampa? Dobo with a lovely switchback. Can he get the traction out of the final corner now? Dobo now into P6. Lovely move. As they head now up Eau Rouge through Radion. Callum's going to get a comfortable move now on GB. Does Callum have the pace though to escape from GB? We will see. Callum, it would be his first win of the season, has 2 P2s. Unfortunately with connection could not make, as there's contact between Dobo and the Salmon here. As Zampa looking for a way back through as well. And the Salmon and Dobo had a little bit of contact. Meanwhile, Charisma back in this battle again. Charisma goes very deep, missing his braking. Touched the grass a little bit there as well. Did Charisma. Meanwhile, GB half a second back from Callum. Does GB have enough tyres here to stay with Callum to the end? We will see. Or will Callum begin to stretch those legs? And also, what will Josh do? Josh, I think, needs to box onto the softs immediately, unless he's planning on going onto these mediums to the end. Has he stopped yet? Let's see. Josh has not stopped yet, so I think Josh has to go onto the mediums as soon as possible, because he does have to go to the end. Maybe lap 13 Josh will come in. Josh now losing the rear, and Josh does come in now for the softs, and Josh does have time though to use those softs. Meanwhile, Zampa as well on the mediums here will have to come in again. Has not boxed yet, has not did his mandatory pit stop. As you can see, Josh now will be exiting onto the hards, which I probably wouldn't have went for, but at least Josh knows he can push to the end here. Meanwhile, Ranga on very worn mediums here can go to the end. Meanwhile, GB back through into the lead. We haven't got a great camera angle here. Meanwhile, Zampa going to get back ahead of the Salmon. Callum now on the rear of GB. GB's losing the rear a lot here. Callum looking on the inside. GB trying to defend here from the McLaren, but a great battle between the Ferraris and the McLarens of old. Can Callum get his first win here of the season? We will see. Callum on the rear of GB. And will he find a way through? Let's see. Meanwhile, the Salmon on the rear of Zampa. And will they be going to the end? Meanwhile, Josh picks up a time penalty, which is not going to help him here in this race. Does need to use a lot of pace, but the drivers who boxed under the safety car, I believe, will massively have the advantage of this race. I believe that second safety car was the time to pit, and Josh stayed out, going for the gamble. Meanwhile, Callum on the outside of GB. GB locking the rears as he slides through the penultimate corner. Meanwhile, Dynamic Duo now. Does he have the pace to stay with Callum and GB, as Callum now on the inside of GB breaks early, allowing GB to go back through. Meanwhile, Dynamic Duo, can he catch these drivers? It seems Callum and GB just have superior pace at this stage. But also Dynamic Duo could have his first podium on the cards. Meanwhile, the Salmon all over the gearbox of Zampa as they head through Radion. Meanwhile, Callum going to get through on GB. We're going to see potentially 3 moves here, as the Salmon going to get through on Zampa. Dobo on the inside of Zampa as well here. The Red Bull loses 2 positions down the Camel Straight. Meanwhile, Coda comes in potentially for softs to the end here. Meanwhile, Dub Z now on the back of King Kai as Zampa's lost out down the hill, and Charisma gets through into P6. Meanwhile, Dub Z now down the Camel Straight. He will go King Kai. Oh, there's big moves from King Kai here, going defensive. Dub Z now round the outside. King Kai. Oh no, King Kai in the rear of Dub Z. Contact between King Kai and Dub Z now. And that's Dub Z spun around on those soft tyres. Heartbreak for Dub Z, who now has a lot to recover here after that spin. Meanwhile, Charisma still following Dubo along here. Meanwhile, Callum now 1.1 ahead of GB, and there's still 7 laps to go in this race. Has he already escaped the DRS that he needs to from our championship leader? Josh sets the fastest lap, trying to catch up to Ranga here in the Aston Martin. And Josh now will be within the DRS of Ranga, who's done 12 laps on those mediums. Is Ranga going to try to go to the end here? Is Charisma going to try to go to the end here as well on those old mediums? It'll be a tough stint, but I believe they're going to try it. Meanwhile, Josh going to head down the Kemmel Straight after his teammate Ranga. And Josh now on the inside goes for the move. Through Lacombe they go, and Ranga may have to concede to Josh, who's on the fresher hard tyres. Meanwhile, GB now thoroughly out of the battle for the lead. 1.5 behind Callum, and Callum just seems to have superior pace here on these hard tyres. GB 9 laps on these mediums is starting to struggle, but will Dynamic Duo be able to use these hards to catch up to GB Sanderson here to get P2 potentially? Meanwhile, we have Dobo in P5, one of our most consistent drivers this season. Currently P2 in the championship, is within the DRS of the Salmon, has better tyres. Meanwhile, there's a yellow flag out for Dub Z. Dub Z has lost it, exiting Lacombe. And struggle for Dub Z currently. Meanwhile, Dobo through Blanchimont he goes. On the rear of the Salmon now. Searching for a move. Can he find a way through? Meanwhile, Charisma comes in off those mediums to go on the softs. May have been too big of a stretch for Charisma to make those mediums work. And Zampa now, we'll see where does he exit in the Red Bull. Meanwhile, Dobo continues to follow along the Salmon here as we head down the Kemmel Straight. Dobo going to get this move done very early with the DRS. Down the Kemmel Straight he goes. Meanwhile, who can we see next? Battle, and it seems like the gaps are really forming now. It's really between Dobo and the Salmon at this stage. Meanwhile, we do have Josh, 3 laps on these hards, who is catching. He is the one to look out for. Can Josh find a way through into P4 here? Does have that time penalty that may hamper him. But if he can clear the drivers ahead relatively quickly on these hards, it could be big for Josh. Now 3 tenths behind the Salmon on 10 laps fresher hards. Can Josh get through on the AlphaTauri? As down the main straight they go, DRS engaged. Salmon still does have DRS from Dobo ahead. Meanwhile, Ranga comes in to box for softs here. A lot of drivers competing for the fastest lap, it seems. Meanwhile, Josh out of turn 1, going to head up Arouge and Radion. Can he get the run? The AlphaTauri's got a bad run through Radion, and Josh now on the outside with the DRS engaged is going to catch the Salmon. Will he find a way through on Dobo though? And Josh does get through now into P5, and Josh now is going to want a dispatch of Dobo as quickly as possible so that he can use his pace in the open air. Meanwhile, Zampa picks up another time penalty here, battling with Pneumatic, as now with DRS Zampa gets through into P8, and Josh now going to want to look to get through Dobo as quickly as possible, because then he can use the pace in clear air. King Kai picks up another time penalty here. Meanwhile, Josh, if he can get through on Dobo, the quicker he'll be able to catch the podium ahead. 4 seconds is the gap. Can Josh make it? As he goes now on the inside, which is a risky place to go for it. Through Blanchimont he goes, side by side with Dobo. Last season we've seen Centrix and another driver come together side by side of Blanchimont, which caused the pit. Meanwhile, GB's coming in off the mediums. GB could potentially have a puncture. As GB now has thrown away the podium. He must have had a puncture, otherwise he's completely thrown away the podium. Meanwhile, Josh now into P3. Just has Dynamic Duo to catch. Meanwhile, Dubsy struggling here. Following his spin. Unfortunately, they've cooked his tyres. Meanwhile, Dobo trying to keep up with Josh, but Josh has great pace here. And 5 laps remaining. Can Josh use these hards to catch now? GB now 9 seconds behind the Salmon. I just don't think GB has picked the right strategy at all. Boxing for the softs was not the way to go for GB, unless he was in puncture territory. Maybe, but we'll have to find out after the race. Meanwhile, Josh has dropped Dobo out of the DRS now. King Kai going to come in for the softs. Meanwhile, Josh has 3 seconds to get caught to Dynamic Duo. You do have to remember Josh has that 3-second time penalty, so he will need to overtake Dynamic Duo and then drop him 3 seconds behind him in order to finish P2 here. But Josh is the driver to look out for, going on the reverse strategy. And GB, unless there's a safety car, I really don't see him gaining that much. He's lost a lot more points than he will gain here. Only a puncture can make me really understand what GB was thinking going on to the softs this late in the race. Dobo's gone. What? Dobo's gone onto the softs. This is what? The Salmon's gone onto the softs. What? Did they all have punctures? GB now has got into P4. Excuse me. And I'm kind of baffled. Why are they going on the softs? This late? I'm so confused. Okay. I mean, they've lost a lot more time than they will gain here. They pit far too late. If they did want to use the softs, they must have been in puncture territory and not expecting it. Meanwhile, Ranganau, with the DRS on the Salmon, may get this move done very comfortably into Lacombe, and he does. And I don't know what GB, Dobo and the Salmon were thinking pitting on to the softs here. Maybe they were in puncture territory. That's the only thing that can make me agree with their strategy, but they have surely lost way more than they will gain. But unless there's a late safety car here, that is big points gone for them, surely. Which is unexpected to see them to all go on the softs. Meanwhile, Charisma picks up another time penalty. That might leave him in 9 seconds here. And it has left him in 9 seconds, which means Charisma will drop several positions. May drop behind the Salmon here. Meanwhile, GB does pick up the fastest lap, which, I mean, fair, but he was in P2. So unless he thinks he would have been P4 anyway, I mean, at the same time though, I would not have bet on the Salmon and Dobo pitting as well. So realistically, he's locked out getting that P4 anyway. Meanwhile, the Salmon will have the DRS on Ranga. Does have the 4-lap fresher softs here. And Ranga still trying to recover from that earlier drive-through. And now down to P8, the Aston Martin falls. Meanwhile, as they head on through, on lap 20 we go. Callum continues to lead us. We've not really mentioned him much this race, but 5 seconds in the lead Callum goes. It may be the most comfortable win of his sim racing career. And Callum now just needs to keep it clean for the next 2 laps. Meanwhile, Josh, 7 laps fresher, mediums here than Dynamic Duo. And can Josh get past Dynamic Duo and build the gap? We will see. He will have the DRS on the penultimate lap here. Can Josh get P2 here? Zampa picks up another time penalty, potentially opening the door to Coda getting the position. And Josh now down the Camel Straight with the DRS. Needs this position as early as possible. And on the inside, the Aston Martin now gets the move done on Dynamic Duo. And Josh now needs to use those much fresher hards now. Meanwhile, there's a yellow flag out. It's King Kai out at Stavolo. Meanwhile, King Kai should still score points. He should still classify, I would think. Meanwhile, Josh now needs to use the pace on these fresher hards to try and escape from Dynamic Duo. But Dynamic Duo still relatively there. If Dynamic Duo just holds on to the DRS, it will be P2 for Dynamic Duo, his best result here. And as we head now onto the final lap, Callum continues to lead us away here. Meanwhile, Dobo could be in for another good result in P5. But his result could have been even better if he just stayed out. I mean, unless he was going to get a puncture. I don't really know what the strategy was. I think Dobo will get P5 here on Charisma. Charisma does have a lot of penalties here. And Dobo now with the DRS may get this move done, or he may just stay behind knowing he will get the move regardless. Meanwhile, Dynamic Duo still has the DRS from Josh, and this may be all he needs to stay ahead of Josh whenever we cross the finish line. Meanwhile, Dobo up a rouge they go through. Ratty on Charisma going defensive. Does Dobo have enough straight line speed to catch Charisma here? Charisma going to keep it ahead. Meanwhile, Dobo searching for way through. Will he get the switch back out of Lacombe? Charisma going to keep it ahead here. Has enough tyre to hold on to. Coda picks up a time penalty, which may keep him behind Zampa. Meanwhile, Dobo should get this position on Charisma. The Salmon will also get this position on Charisma, as Charisma's got a lot more penalties. As we're now on the final lap, Callum now, who has had a comfortable race, 4 seconds in the lead. Josh has been trying to catch here, but he's just too far back. And through bus stop, the McLaren goes, and Callum will get his first win of the season in Spa. Lovely win there for Callum, followed by Josh, who will be jumped by Dynamic Duo because of penalties. GB Stannerson in P4 will get the fastest lap, but Charisma now coming across the line will lose out to Dobo and the Salmon surely. Due to penalties, Dobo into P5, the Salmon into P6. And surely they lost more than they gained by boxing. I don't really know what... it was Ranga jumped all the way up to P6. Big jump there from Ranga. Meanwhile, Zampa will cross the line now in P9, followed by Coda in P10. And Nudomatic followed by Dubsy will be the next to cross the line. 12 finishers here in Spa. And thank you for the follow, Pipe Tech. Welcome into the stream if you're still here. And Dynamic Duo with his best result of the season with a P2. Brilliant result there. And Callum as well, after not being able to race with us last time out due to due to disconnection, gets his win that he deserves here in Spa. But a brilliant result there for Callum. Gets the win, followed by Dynamic Duo, followed by Josh. And Jason in the chat says, good racing. Ravage says, let's go. Ravage is also known as Dynamic Duo, for those of you who don't know. GG says, Coda. Nudomatic says, well, that was eventful. And that was insane racing in the middle of that race. So close, following that second safety car, and very entertaining race it was. But Callum is your winner in the McLaren. Big points here for McLaren, and our 4th winner of the season so far, with a brilliant win. But next time out, we will be heading into Monza in Italy, and then we will have our mid-season break. King Kai still did score points, did classify down in P13. Meanwhile, we'll have a quick look through all the incidents. Did it say Nudomatic Driver of the Day? Well, Nudomatic, you qualified in P14 up to P11. Is there any bigger jumps than that? Josh from P8 to P3. I didn't see who the driver of the day was, but if it was you, Nudomatic, then the game just loves you. But Nudomatic is the number 1 driver here, as you can see. He's so much the number 1 driver that they actually give him 2 ones in his position. But anyway, GB does get the fastest lap, but Callum is your winner, closing the championship gap, and GB in P4 with the fastest lap. But we will get everyone into the party now if we can. Let's see if we can invite them. Yes, yes. Ravage, you have a big echo.
Oh, I know why it was. His TV was volume. You just heard him press the button.
Anyway, yeah, as you all come in, make sure to include your audio. Well, I think we'll start the interviews with GB. GB, you did get P4 there, and that's a slap. How'd that race go for you?
Joshy, mate, your TV's not muted, that's why it is. We can hear the TV. Not Joshy, Ravage.
Ravage, you need to mute your TV. And now Callum needs to mute his TV as well.
Oh no, it's my headset being on. I'll untick my box just until.
Well, right. Anyway, we'll start interviews with GB here. How'd that race go for you, GB?
I took a risk after that chaos at the start that there'd be another safety car late on, and it didn't really pay off. So 4th was about as good as I could have hoped for, I guess, in that. We had pace at the end, and I was hoping that people would get extra penalties, or maybe they still will after the race. I don't know what's gone on for most of that race, but yeah, I was more just interested in where Dobbo in particular was finishing, because just at the championship, the way it is at the moment, and I've still gained points on him, so I think my lead's still just about extended. But yeah, it's just one of those nights where you just think of the bigger picture instead of being disappointed over missing out on podium and stuff like that.
Yeah. Um, were you in puncture territory at the end?
And
On those
no,
mediums?
weirdly the softs had about the same tire life as my mediums did. My mediums were terrible. I don't know
I
if
feel
it.
like you would have got higher if you'd have just stayed out.
I had to pit. I got medium at the start, so I had to take a
Oh,
pit
right,
stop.
right, right.
So
Understandable.
yeah, I took the risk that after the chaos of the first few laps there'd be another VSC or another safety car that I could benefit from, but that never came. So it was just leave it as long as I could with enough time to try and catch up. And I don't think I was going to catch up. The softs by the end of that final lap, the final sector, they were starting to go off a little bit. So I think it was best I could have really hoped for. But I get the extra couple of points of fastest lap, and you know,
Hmm.
it in terms of order, it could have finished, and it's just about as good as I could have hoped. I think.
Hmm. And then we'll move on to Ravage. That is P2 and pole as well. You get the double points for pole as well. How'd that race go for you? Um, Ravage, have you ticked the box in the party? Is there a box? When you go into the party, is there a box to tick? I don't really know what to do.
You can just hear him in the pie. He's just very quiet, basically.
All right, Ravage, join us to like. We'll take our headsets off, and then you shout your you shout your interview, and everyone can hear you.
I mean, personally, I think it should be a like 3 second penalty for having poor audio. You know, just cheeky 3 seconds on there, please. Oh, mate, the pole lap. I've never been more gutted to miss out.
A hundredth.
I went deep at turn one and was a tenth down after the first sector. Yeah.
But good race nonetheless. It's your first podium, I believe, yeah? As well as getting a P2, that's going to help you massively in the championship as well. But then we're now going to move on to Callum, who gets his first win of the season here in WHF. Callum, how'd that race go for you?
Very painfully. I thought I would have had enough pace for pole, but it just wasn't enough. Ravage was just that bit too quick. But then, then you had the infamous 2 safety cars. Oh my god, they were horrible. And then I was stuck behind. Actually, I say stuck. I was cutting through people like a hot knife through butter with GB, and then there was one overtake I have in mind, and it was the one on Zampa, and it was the sexiest thing ever, and that boosted my entire mentality for that race. It was great. But tire well was also a big pain. I had, I think, like 78% by the end. It was really stupid, but got there in the end.
Well, very good race and very good win for you, Callum. which will also help you catch up in the championship. GB hasn't lost out much though, because he did finish P4, so has not lost much in the championship. Anyway, chat, this has been us here from round 5 in Tier 2 in Belgium. We'll be back tomorrow with GB in the commentary booth for Imola for Tier 1, and then next week
And Andy.
and Andy.
Stop
as well.
forgetting the poor man.
I'm not forgetting Andy. I was like, I haven't checked if Andy says he's coming or not.
Yeah,
I need to
he
check.
is.
Okay, alright.
Bubbler.
I'm not forgetting him. I just don't want to say Andy's coming, and then everyone gets their hype and their hopes up, and I forgot to check if he
And then they're
is.
just disappointed because it's just me.
And then we also have next week we head to the other side of Italy for Tier 2 next Saturday, where Tier 2 will head to Monza. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't followed yet, please do. We're going to raid Funky T-Bone on our way out. But I hope you all have enjoyed. You've been joined by me, WHF Arrow. And we'll be back tomorrow for Imola. See you then, and bye-bye.
Oof.